4 straight division titles for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Can they make it 5 straight or this coming season? Or will they finally fall back down to earth with a new offensive coordinator and a little bit of a new change here heading into 2025? Welcome back to 32 on 32 here on Chasing Sports News, where we preview every single NFL team season with a team reporter. Today, we preview the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' upcoming season with a very special guest, a reporter and writer covering the team on multiple different outlets, JC Allen. JC, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Happy to chop it up. I love talking football. So anytime I get that opportunity, I'm down.
I think we're all down with the opportunity to talk some football. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And I think a lot of things to break down when you look at Tampa Bay Buccaneers football. I think we just have to start. What overall stood out to you from Tampa Bay Buccaneers training camp and their preseason action?
Yeah, Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, they're like in midseason form. Baker was doing so well in training camp, and there were reports of like interceptions here or there, but the context needs to be set that Baker Mayfield uses training camp like you should use training camp, and he tries different things and makes different throws that he's practicing, which is what training
That's why
camp.
I hate training camp stats. It's like you're literally going to judge someone on practicing. It's not like these stats are going anywhere. It's like they have an end goal or a result they're trying to reach. It's ridiculous.
It's crazy. But in joint practices, he showed out, and that was enough. The Bucs didn't want to see him in training camp. And Mike in preseason, and Mike Evans, same thing. He's looked amazing. I think the biggest surprise, maybe, but not a surprise, if you really kind of knew what you were getting, was Emeka Egbuka coming in and being compared by his quarterback to Amon-Ra St. Brown, being compared to the GM and the head coach to Chris Godwin. He came in and he looks like a seasoned vet. That was his scouting report, pro ready, but I don't think people thought he was this pro ready. He's going to put up dynamic numbers this season for the Buccaneers and help propel them, hopefully to another 5th division title. But the defense looked good flying around. Last year they had 7 picks as a secondary in defense in training camp. I think almost everyone had an interception at some point during camp, and through preseason games they led all teams in interceptions. So those are the things. Hassan Reddick and Yaya Diaby look primed to have breakout years. Hassan Reddick obviously getting back to form, but Yaya breaking out. And the defense as a whole was a real soft spot for them last year with injuries. Looks much stronger, much better. And with the offense returning all of their starters, plus Emeka Egbuka, it looks like to be in much better shape. And they're flying on the radar, but that's the way they like it.
I mean, look, the Bucs defense can be inconsistent, but when you have Baker Mayfield at quarterback, he's shown that with the supporting cast around them, the offense can have a ton of success and outscore a ton of teams and kind of propel themselves to victories in that way. We've mentioned it, 4 straight AFC South titles, now back-to-back years with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. It's one thing to win back-to-back titles, a Super Bowl even the year before the streak with Tom Brady. Now they're having an incredible amount of success in terms of kind of dominating and claiming the AFC South as their own with Baker Mayfield a quarterback. How have they been able to maintain such success with Mayfield resurrecting his career?
I think continuity. You saw it this year. A lot of guys will take less to stick around. Obviously, they weren't going to pay Tristan Wirfs less, but Chris Godwin turned down a substantial amount of money to come back. Mike Evans was on the table to leave. He had several offers. The Chiefs were one of them. But he wanted to come back to the Buccaneers and took less to do so. Multiple other players have done that as well. It's the culture they've built, and they can bring anyone into that locker room. And it really started in 2019, but really kind of solidified itself in 2020 with Brady and with the camaraderie that they had to build without being with each other, essentially, because of COVID. And that carried that Super Bowl win and having that, and then being able to be with each other and have that closeness with everybody. There are a few malcontents on that team that aren't, playing for them anymore, and one of them is not even in the league. One of them retired. So, there's always those guys, but the culture and the strength of that bond from that Super Bowl season and everything that BA and he's a player's coach brought in has carried over with these guys and with Baker and with Tristan and with Antoine and with obviously Mike and Levante, and they've got such a strong. It doesn't matter what kind of happens because they're going to move forward together as a team. And that's been one of the huge strengths, I think, of this team, and having a guy like Baker come in and automatically buy in, fit in, and help resurrect to this team. And specifically on offense, all the guys buying in. And when they went from last ranked rushing to top 5 rushing. So, it says a lot about the Bucs culture. They're one of the few locker rooms, I think, in the league that can handle almost anything and come out clean through.
No, absolutely. And it's been unbelievable to watch what they have been able to do. I mean, we were talking about the success. You win the division last year, play a tight game with the Commanders. They later go to the NFC Championship game. Who knows what the result is? If Baker doesn't have that fumble or if you get a missed field goal at the end or whatnot. But overall, you can't hold them against them. The Washington team was incredible. I think in the offseason, they have done some solid things as well. You mentioned bringing back Chris Godwin on maybe a little bit of a team friendly discount. You bring back Levante David. You bring in Hassan Reddick. You get Emeka Ibuka out of Ohio State. It just feels like they've done a lot. What have you overall thought about Tampa's offseason moves as they again try to enter another contending stage?
Yeah, just another draft class, masterclass by Jason Light and his team. You go back to the last 3-4 years now, about 3 years now, and they've hit. Most of all of those players are still on the roster and they're contributing. Talking about Cody Moak, Luke Gedeke, Rashad White, Kate Otten, Zion McCollum. The list goes on and on. Graham Barton, Bucky Irving, Jalen McMillan, who's out for a little bit, but Tyke Smith. I mean, they've hit draft pick after draft pick after draft pick. And it feels like, again, this year, not just with Emeka Ibuka, but with everyone else they got in that draft, with Benjamin Morrison, who was a first round, type of talent caliber player, and he falls to them in the second. They get Jacob Parrish, who's going to be their starting nickel cornerback. And I mean, it just continues to go down on the list. And David Walker was primed for a big year before he got injured and tore his ACL. But Elijah Roberts is going to have a good year, for them. Led all defensive linemen and edge rushers in pressures in the preseason, so in pressure percentage. So like they just continue to nail the head, and then they make these supplemental signings. Like last year was Ben Bredesen, and the starting left guard got re-signed this year to a big 3-year, $33 million deal. They make these little signings that actually contribute and go a long way. And again, I don't think anyone's better in the league than turning under undrafted free agents and finding them those gems in the bottom of the pile that nobody wants after the draft. They've done it for the last 3 seasons. 3 more made it again this year. And 2 of them look to have a big role on the team going forward.
Of course, but I think you can't really say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now without talking about Baker Mayfield. And to me, it's fascinating because you are in a situation where you're essentially dumped from Cleveland, right? 4 years of your rookie contract. They say, we don't believe in you. Goodbye. Then you go to Carolina. Things don't work. Then you're a backup in Los Angeles. And finally, Tampa Bay was like, look, you got one last opportunity to prove you could still do this at the pro level. And now he's all of a sudden, I think by many, considered a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League. How has he been able to resurrect his career? And how has he gone from, at a point 2 years ago, we were calling him a bust, and now we're looking at Baker Mayfield as one of the game's best signal callers?
Yeah, I think it's just, again, it goes back to the culture in this locker room. And I think when he came in and he said it, when I came in, they just told me to be me. And that's the first time I've ever heard that from a team. They've always wanted something different. Just be me. Go out there and sling it. And I think that really solidified itself in that week 1 game against the Vikings, where he lowered his shoulder into a cornerback and told him to get your weight up, little boy. He had the defensive guys going crazy. He had the offensive guys going crazy. And when you have that, you have everyone bought into you. And when everyone's bought into you and it has your back, you can go out there and play a little bit more free, a little bit more confident, a little bit more swagger. We know Baker he's had to shelve it a little bit, at other stops, but he's got it and he plays like that. And the team loves that. And Todd Bowles was one of the guys who was banging his hands on the table when they were talking about who are we going to get in here with Trask. And he was like, this guy, I'm telling you, I recruited him scouted him out coming out of the draft. I know what he's made up of. Fun fact, Baker Mayfield would have been the quarterback a year earlier if Tom Brady did not unretire. Bruce Arians would have seriously considered trading for him from the Browns before Panthers could have to be the quarterback, and then Brady unretired. Wow. So that's the wrench in that. But he's just a guy who puts his head down, work. Now, credit to Dave Canales, for putting him in a system that worked for him. That Panther system never worked for him. That was a terrible fit from the get-go. And obviously his last year with the Browns, he was hurt. You saw what he could do in a system like McVay's system, and right. Canales is from that tree. And then obviously Liam Cohen directly from that tree as his former OC, and now Josh Grizzard coming in. Mike McDaniel spent years with Mike McDaniel. He spent, and then he spent last year with Liam Cohen. So he's from that same Shanahan, where this all branches off of is Mike Shanahan. Kyle, McVay, all these other people, they're branches from that Mike Shanahan style offense. And I think it really suits him well. You saw it in that Rams game when he did it in a 38-hour turnaround, I think it was. And you've seen it the last 2 years in Tampa Bay. The variation of that system with motions and cans and responsibility at the line and stuff like that to switch in different plays has suited him well. And he's just an athlete and a playmaker too. I mean, how many did Joey Bosa stiff arm fourth down conversion throw to Rashad White when he was really throwing it to Sterling Shepard, or the runs he's made? All that stuff he's been able to, as I said in the beginning of when I started answering this, is he's allowed to just be Baker, and it's worked.
He kind of, when he's rushing and he's scrambling out of the pocket, he kind of has a sense of anger to him. And I think it's a little bit of that chip on his shoulder after being this number 1 overall pick. After your rookie season, you're pretty much being called the chosen one. You're being considered the future of the NFL. Then you have some bright spots in Cleveland, but also some dark periods as well. And essentially the NFL gives up on you. And I think he still has a chip on his shoulder from that time. And I think that he's going to continue to carry that with him throughout the rest of his career. And I think it's, helped this Buccaneers offense really reach that next level. Now, though, see Liam. Yeah, go ahead.
Not many quarterbacks are got footage of them truck sticking Bobby Wagner. Yeah,
right.
It's not a lot. Small percentage out there.
Of course, it's kind of that strength, that physicality, that anger he has inside him, that tenacity. That makes him so great. I want to talk about, though, real quick, Liam Cohen's going to Jacksonville, graduated to a head coaching position. Josh Grizzard, I think he could possibly fit the mold, obviously, previously in this Tampa Bay system. You go in-house for the offensive coordinator hire. But Liam Cohen, I feel like, has been instrumental to kind of this development and resurrection of Baker Mayfield. Are the Bucs going to see a little bit of dip in offensive production? I mean, they were top 5 in offensive yardage all across the board. Passing, rushing, total yardage. But do you think they'll see a little bit of a dip now without Cohen?
I mean, maybe in the beginning of the season, just because they won't have Wirfs and they won't have Godwin, so maybe the numbers will kind of appear, and they won't have McMillan, so the numbers might not be as strong for if you include those. But if you take those when those guys are back, let's say week 5, week 6, and on, I think they'll be very comparable to how they finished last year. I don't sense a big change from what Liam was doing to what Josh is going to be doing. A different terminology, different his own wrinkles and stuff like that, but there's not going to be much of a change. The real growth you saw with Baker from 2022 to 2023 or 23 to 24, whatever it was when he was with Dave Canales, first-time play caller. Liam had some experience as a play caller, but really what he wanted to do is give Baker more freedom, and that's where all those different cans came in and checking at the line, audibles essentially came in for him so he can check into different cans. It's why you'll hear him can. He's checking into different plays because he's calling 2 plays in the huddle. So that freedom really kind of opened up the offense a little bit, where it was a little bit more restricted under Dave Canales for certain reasons. Obviously, you want to protect Baker. You're both trying to cement yourselves. You're trying to cement yourself as a top OC going forward. You're trying to get your career back. So there was a little bit safeness to it. Liam, you saw him kind of get a little bit wild with it sometimes. And, and then he threw in the pony package, but all that stuff should still be there with Grizzard. Will it hit the same way? Again, the first couple weeks of the season, I'm not quite sure because of the injuries, but once everyone's back, I think it should be hitting in all strides. And I would be shocked if they didn't finish top 10 in both of those statistical categories. Even if they're right outside the top 5, they're not going to fall much far.
Yeah, I mean, the Buccaneers offense is really efficient last year. I think it's going unnoticed. We obviously know the 2 strong wide receivers there with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They've both been incredible. Evans, 1,000 yards in every season of his career. I think it's up to 11 now. And personally, just as an NFL fan, not a Bucs fan, I want to see Mike Evans continue that streak. Imagine he does that for almost his entire career. That would be really something special to watch. Godwin was on track for career highs last year before injury. Then you added Mbuka as well. So how dominant will that trio, particularly, the Evans and Godwin combination, but now even adding in Mbuka, how dominant will they be this coming season?
Well, when people were like, because people were like, a wide receiver, we need a linebacker, we need an edge rusher, we need a cornerback, we got to get Jamel Dean out of here. But like when you look at it, what the Bucs is super strategic. First of all, they weren't sure about Chris Godwin. And when you're not sure about that, then you've got to have something there in place. Jalen McMillan did a good job, but he's not a number 2 wide receiver in the league yet. Very high in number 3, I think he'll develop into, maybe a low end 2. But he's not there yet. You need to have another option, especially in this offense, the way they want to operate it. But also what it does is I can't go, if I'm a team, I cannot, even if it's going to be week 6 or week 5 or whatever, week 4, whenever Chris Godwin comes back, I can't go to last year and say this is how they're going to attack me with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Emeka Egbuka. It's not there. It adds a completely new wrinkle to the offense that
Right.
teams aren't going to be prepared for. And what's even going to be better is like when you get later in the season, a lot of teams aren't going to be prepared for that, especially right when they come back. You know, they're facing the Seahawks and the Lions and the 49ers, you know, those 5, 6, 7 week right there. Like those are that's a tough stretch of games. And if you don't have a lot of tape on how they're going to utilize Egbuka and Godwin, that works out in your favor because you can catch them.
Yeah.
Maybe you can catch them sleeping on some things. So I thought it was a great idea to get them. I think they're going to be a fantastic duo. I think Egbuka is going to have a great season. I think Godwin will come back. He'll take a few weeks to get acclimated, but pick up right where he left off. Mike Evans, like I said, he's in mid-form season, another 1,000-yard, 10-touchdown season incoming. And then they have all these other guys too. Tez Johnson's going to be really fun to watch with the ball in his hand. Sterling Shepard's still making plays. Bucky Irving is showing more out of the backfield as a receiver. They still got Rachaad White, who's probably the best receiving back and best pass protecting back in the league. So,
yes, just touch on Bucky Irving too, because he's been absolutely fabulous for this Buccaneers team. You think that'll continue this year?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the good things that Liam Cohen did that Dave kind of failed to do was in that McVay offense, it's really run wide zone, mid zone type scheme. But the Bucs, their personnel, their blockers, they can do it, and their runners, they can do it, but they do so much better in a gap based scheme, gap duo based scheme. And you saw Liam Cohen realize that, and as that season shifted, he started calling more of those plays, and the Bucs had more success in the run game. So Bucky Irving, you got all 5 offensive linemen coming back for you. Another year of Payne Durham developing as a blocker, with Kate Otten developing as a blocker. He's in a really good spot. You know, he's going to be the guy going forward. Rachaad will come spell him. He'll get some plays in for Sean Tucker and Josh Williams, but it's going to be his backfield. Everybody else is just living in it.
For sure. Did you mention that continuity, returning the offensive lineman, returning the same group of skill positions, returning the same quarterback? All of this stuff is so important to building a contender. Tampa Bay seems to be right there. Real quick before we break down the schedule and wrap things up, defensively, always a question mark there for Tampa Bay. How are you feeling about the defense? Should fans be confident? Just kind of a quick overview on the defense.
So I think what the Bucs wanted to do on the defensive side of the ball was build depth. They felt like they didn't have enough quality depth last season when injuries took hold, especially at cornerback, secondary. They didn't have guys that they could plug in there. I feel like they think they've done that. They made the move from Tyke Smith to nickel cornerback to safety next to Antoine Winfield. So far, there's going to be some bump in the roads, but he's a very smart player. He's going to get that down. Jacob Parrish, who I mentioned earlier, he's going to come in as starting cornerback. He's looked phenomenal, tremendous. And then you have Zion and Dean, but behind them, you have a little bit more depth with Benjamin Morrison, Kendall Vildor, a couple of these other guys who are cross-training, can play other positions. So they feel really good. As far as the front seven, Kaladja-Kancey's healthy coming into week 1, something he hasn't been in the last couple seasons. So there's high expectations around him. And this front line altogether, I think I'm doing my bold prediction article soon, where I do 10 bold predictions. I have this front line getting at least 30 sacks between the 4 players, because I just think they're going to be that dominant with Hassan Reddick, Yaya Diaby, Vita Vea, and Kaladja-Kancey, because you can't double everybody. And if you double Vita Vea, everybody else is getting one-on-ones. You're one-on-oneing Yaya Diaby, Hassan Reddick, Kaladja-Kancey. Very, very difficult assignments. Yeah. If you don't have an team of all pro bowlers, teams are going to find out the hard way that they got to figure out some way to stop this front 4. Linebacker Levante has been crushing it. Servassier Dennis is the name to watch. I think he takes a really big jump this year. They have high hopes for him. He's finally healthy. He can take that next step. We're talking about a guy who has Pro Bowl potential and could be the heir apparent to Levante David. He's that talented across the board, blitz pickup coverage, reading, reacting, calling the plays. Across the board, he's good. So I feel really good about this Bucs defense. They're being slept on in fantasy. I'll grab them. I think they're going to have a bunch of turnovers there. But I think with the depth they've built, and with the guys they brought in and developed, I think it's going to be a top-tier unit this year.
I'm excited to see what the defense does do. That pass rush does look like it's going to be dominant. Real quick, the last thing before we do the schedule breakdown, I want to hear your thoughts on Todd Bowles for a minute, because I don't believe he's an incredible coach. I think he's kind of inherited a great system and a great situation, and I don't know if he really is the right guy to take this Bucs team to the next level. Do you think Todd Bowles can really be the head coach of a Super Bowl winning team, or will eventually they'll have to fizzle him out and bring in someone else?
No, I think he's got all the intangibles there. He's very smart. He's strategic. I mean, just go back. He knows how to put together a game plan. Just go back to the Super Bowl and watch that game plan against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I mean, he's very intelligent. He knows how to divvy up responsibilities. Problem with Todd Bowles with the Bucs is you're right. He inherited a system. Inherited a system with bad coaches his first year and after free agency. He couldn't put his stamp on this team when he first took over it. His second year, guess what? Tom Brady decided to unretire. Screwing up some of their plans, and they had to eat. No, the next year Tom Brady retired, but they had to eat all that cap space. They ate about $85 million in dead cap space that year. He finally got brought in an OC that he wanted to work with, Dave Canales. Oh, next year, guess what? Dave Canales leaves, and now you got to re-sign all these other players: Antoine Winfield Jr., Tristan Wirfs, Mike Evans, Levante David. That eats up a large portion of your cap too. So you still can't really put your mark on this team, other than guys you have drafted. And if you look at the defensive players the Bucs have drafted over the last couple of years, and Bowles was pounding on the table for Emeka Egbuka this year, defensive guy. That's where he's been able to do it. And again, Dave Canales leaves, and then he brings in Liam Cohen, and then Liam Cohen leaves. So he hasn't had much continuity on his staff as far as offensive coordinators, and he hasn't had much flexibility to really go out there, sign someone that he says, this is a difference maker for my defense. Maybe Hassan Reddick was part of it, but this is a difference maker for my defense. This is a difference maker for our team. It's been, let's take care of our own guys because we're drafting developing so well. So I think he gets a bad shake. Is he a tremendous A1 top coach? No, but even he said that the other day. He said, I think I'm good to pretty good. There's things he's working on. And one of the things clock management has been something that people have been talking about with Todd Bowles since he was with the Jets. He hired Brian Beisline, I believe, to come in from Carolina. Beisline is his last name. Not sure on his first name. Sorry. But he hired him from Carolina. And this guy specifies in clock management. Hey, we need to take a time out here. Hey, if we do XYZ, then we have time for XYZ. All that clock management stuff Bowles has struggled with. He's now got someone in his ear helping him. He's showing improvement. The timeout situation he was getting burned with. He called his timeouts. Like a sign of a good coach is one who's always trying to get better and evolve and take the next step to get better, recognizes his faults and his flaws, and continues to try to get better. It's Todd Bowles. Can he bring this team? They're going to play their butt off for him. They're going to give him everything they got. They love him. So, yeah, I think he can. I think he's a good coach, and he's got an opportunity to get better, and he's taking those steps. So I think he gets too much hate that he's credit for. Do I think if it was me, I would have maybe kept Liam Cohen because I think he's a generational offensive mind. But I think Todd Bowles is the right guy for the job.
So you think that even though you love Todd Bowles, you would have said fire Bowles, bring in Cohen as the head coach?
I would have tried to work something out where Bowles has said he doesn't want to coach forever and have some type of succession plan there. Make him, and I think the Bucs kind of tried to do that, right? They gave it, we're going to make him the highest paid OC, and I'm sure there was like, hey, this is yours when Bowles leaves in a couple of years. But he wanted that opportunity now. Can't fault him. Those opportunities don't come. What happens if the Bucs tank for the next 2 years, and now he's not a hot option for the Bucs as a successor? They want to clear the whole house. He's got no guarantees, so the money would have been good, but he got way more money as a head coach. So, you
can't fault him for leaving. Yeah.
No, I think the way he did it was a little shy. And I'm good friends with Liam. I think he's going to do some great things with Jacksonville for sure. But I would have wanted to keep him.
Yeah, because how much value coach had compared to a coordinator, and it's kind of all this conversation. How much influence does Todd Bowles have on the offense compared to Liam Cohen? The offense has been carrying the wins, so kind of the questions like that. Real quick, I want to out the Buccaneers, something we do with every team here for our season previews on 32. I also give kind of my projection there. I got 9 wins this year. I feel like it sounds about right. You had 10 last year from correct 9 the year before. I think it's another AFC South title. I think this team is just too inconsistent to go on a ton of divisional wins and have them 3-3 in the AFC South. And I think that could hold them back from possibly reaching 11-6 and 12-5 season as one of the top seeds in the conference.
I mean, I'll disagree with you there. I think the Bucs are better than they were last year across the board. They're bringing back everybody on offense. They've made the improvements on defense. You lost Joe Tryon-Shoyinka to free agency. You brought in Hassan Reddick. They didn't really lose many other guys as far as players that were starters. KJ Britt, but he was not great as a starter. You bring up Savasi Dennis, get him back. So I think from a roster,
can you also make the argument that overall the offense just overachieved last year? I mean, Mayfield had a career season. Bucky Irving stormed on. Like, they can maybe take a step back, even if it's not because of Liam Cohen, just because it's hard to replicate that.
Absolutely. I think the offense can take a step back, but I don't think they take a step back to where they're really struggling to put up points. They scored, 30 points a game? Maybe they scored 27. I don't think it's a 30 to 20 drop back at all. Grizzard was a lot of the Bucs' sustained drives were due to red zone and particularly third down, where they're the best team on third down. Josh Grizzard was their third down coordinator. He coordinated all those plays in every game week. So, their third down success is definitely going to take a step back, but it's still going to be good. Their red zone, all those guys are still there. That's still going to be good. And they still have playmakers that when they have Bucky Irving, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Ibuka, and Cade Otton on the field, or if they go four wide once they get Jalen McMillan, there's not a team that can line up against that with one-on-one matchups and win that. You're going to have to double someone. Most likely that's Mike. So now you're giving Emeka and Chris one-on-one options. You're giving Bucky a one-on-one option out of the backfield. You're giving Cade Otton a one-on-one option, potentially on a tight end where it's a mismatch. I just think the offense is going to still hum. There's going to be new wrinkles, but it's still going to be good. The defense is where the questions are, right? They've made these improvements. Yeah. They've added this step. Servasi Dennis is back healthy. Can they take this next step? I think they do. I think I agree with some of your losses there. Definitely. I think week 15, week 16, week 12, week 11 look like prime losses for me. I don't think they lose to the Saints or the Jets. I'm going back right now between your week 4 and week 7 if they're going to go 11-6, or if I have them at 12-5. I haven't really figured it out, but I'm high on them there. The Falcons, I think they've got a world of issues right now, especially at tackle. You're relying on 2 rookie edge rushers and to be the beacon light of a team where you've struggled for years, and a big part of your failures on defense has become lack of edge rush. I think the Panthers take a step up this year under Dave Canales, and the Saints, that's a mess. I don't even know where to start there. They're losing pieces on defense left and right. They're trading draft capital where they are so far in the cap hole that they're not going to be able to ever dig themselves out of there unless they really reset. And when I say reset, I mean blow it up, reset for 3-year period and just know we're going to be awful. Maybe something positive comes out of it, but we're going to be pretty bad. They're not in a good position now. Spencer Rattler doesn't scare anybody. Neither does Tyler Shaw. Neither does anything. And it runs to the quarterback. They don't have one.
No, for sure. I mean, I could definitely see the path to 4-2. Personally, I'm kind of on opposite sides of the spectrum with the Falcons and with the Panthers. I actually don't think Bryce Young is going to be all that. I think he had a little bit of a fluky end of the season last year. I think defenses are going to start to figure him out. Well, on the contrary, I do like Michael Penix Jr., and I do like the construction of that Falcons roster. And you're a few Kirk Cousins, not bad games, horrific games away from getting into the postseason last year. So I just think that the Falcons could possibly flip that around. I think the division will be competitive. I still do think Tampa Bay takes the division. I am a little bit worried about their consistency. I don't know what I'm going to see defensively, but I trust Baker Mayfield. And that's something I never thought I would say after kind of that one rough point in his career. But I truly do think he's one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the National Football League. And I think you have that kind of guy quarterbacking this offense with a guy like Bucky Irving, who I love going into this year. When you have a guy like Mike Evans at wideout, who's so consistently dominant, such a dominant presence. When you get Chris Godwin fully healthy for the back end, I think you're going to start to see some of these things come to fruition. And I think the offense alone will be good enough to maybe mask some of the defensive inconsistencies. Thus, you'll get to a 9-8 record in a postseason appearance.
Yeah. I think they're going to do better than that. I don't see the Jets or the Saints outscoring them this season, especially that early on in the season with the Jets. I can't see a path for that. That the Bucs score, 24, 27 points, and the Jets can keep up with that against the defense that they have. Again, the defense wasn't great, but I think a lot of that was due to injuries, and I think people are going to see that this year. They're healthy. They're ready to go.
We sure will see. Again, look at the schedule. I got 9-8. We'll obviously see what happens. We're projecting every team, but I think at some point, you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoffs. nothing to complain about there for fans. But the question is eventually going to be, can they, I don't want to say it's Super Bowl or bust, but can they finally get over the hump? JC Allen, my final question to you. This Tampa Bay Buccaneers team has taken strides in the right direction. You seem to have a nice score there. Baker Mayfield, I think, can be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. But what's going to be the next step for this team to take that next step and take that next stride toward being a prominent Super Bowl contender? They have not made the conference championship since that Super Bowl winning year.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, the Bucs, both of their Super Bowl wins, it's been health. That's a big thing, and you can't control that. They've got to be healthy, and if they're healthy, they're going to make a lot of noise. I think. I think the Buccaneers can certainly make the NFC championship game, and a Super Bowl I don't think is out of the realm. I think they have the talent on the offensive side of the ball. I think they have the talent on the defensive side of the ball. They've got good special teams unit. They finally got returners and a punter, which was a disaster for them the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I think if you look across the board, good coaching. They have the talent at those spots where you need to have spots: edge rusher, tackle, quarterback, wide receiver, cornerback. I think people sleeping on the Bucs need to wake up because they're going to make a push. They're Super Bowl contenders, whether you want to talk about them or not. They have as good a shot as anybody in the NFC. Even the Eagles, I would say, beat them. They've had the Eagles number to make it to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
We'll have to see what happens. The NFC just did get tougher. The rich gets richer with, while the Lions lost some coordinators, you're getting that team healthy again. Micah Parsons goes to Green Bay. So we're going to have to see. It's going to be a fun NFL season, and Tampa Bay will certainly try and be in the mix. And I do think they very well could be in the mix. JC Allen, thanks so much for taking the time here today to preview the Buccaneers season. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
So happy we were finally able to connect. We're going to wrap this one up here alongside JC Allen. All the links to his work is in the description below. I am your host, Chase Coburn. Fans, comment below what you do think, and NFL fans, stay tuned for more 32 on 32 content right here from Chase's Sports News. Signing off, I'm your host, Chase Coburn.